All right, howdy guys. Hopefully we got everything set up and everybody can hear me. I thought I'd do just an impromptu Greatbassoon update plus slash band nerd hangout. Just because it's Tuesday. Why else? So yeah, go ahead and let me know if everything's coming through all right, and we'll just kind of hang out, chat, question answer session if you want. Um, I'll just wait to confirm that I've got. Let's see, handful of people watching right now. Yep. So yeah, if you can hear me, just go ahead and give me a thumbs up or give me the okay. All right, sounds good. So, Greatbassoon update. Well, I've got it right here. Um, and well, what's better than so now this reminds me of the very first PDQ Bach album I ever got. Um, was music for an awful lot of winds, percussion, and in it he posits the question: what's more beautiful than the sound of one guitar? The sound of two guitars. Well, naturally, what's more beautiful than the sound of two guitars? Four bassoons. And what's better than one great bassoon? Uh, Two great bassoons. And, well, obviously they're not going to both fit in the camera, but I now have two bodies here. um, that makes me sound like a serial killer, doesn't it? Maybe I am. No. So why do I have two bodies with no keys? Well, a few reasons. One, on the original, we made one slight change, and it had to do with the very end of the boot joint. And basically, we realized that the end cap, the U bend wouldn't go on as we originally designed it, so we had to build wings on it. I'll see if I can show you a little bit. So in the original design, it's going to be just flat, and on the new design, it's going to be with wing shape. Again, that's probably not going to come through. I'm just now seeing it in the camera because I've got that 30-second delay. The other thing I did is I printed this in a different material, so they may look superficially the same. The one in my right hand would be on the on the left side of the camera is printed in PLA plastic, and this one here is printed in ABS plastic. ABS has a few advantages over PLA. One, it is a much more difficult material to print. It requires a much higher temperature to print, and it needs an enclosed structure in order to maintain that temperature. So I had to set up a new printing area in my garage because you can't print ABS indoors because it produces a lot of fumes. So it took, I probably started the print job on this the very first week of this month. And I finished it just a couple days ago. So realistically, it takes about a month for me to print one of these. Now, for a good chunk of that time, I was out of town, but yeah, that gives you an idea. So, about a month print time to get this. I could probably speed that up. Like the boot joint itself is two 30-hour prints, so it's about 60 hours of print time total. And that's just for the boot joint. So that's what, uh, 2.5 days? Close, yeah, 2.5 days, yeah, about right. But the biggest advantage of printing, well, there's two really huge advantages of printing in the ABS. Chemically, you can glue it together much better. In fact, it's called chemically welding it. So I can take the bell joint off here, and it is in 3 pieces. But I've got these sanded and filled in so well that, I mean, you can see it, and I'm going to need to do a little bit more work on this seam here. But the seams on the base joint are hardly visible at all, and they are welded together. They're not coming apart. On the PLA model, I did have some of them come apart actually pretty regularly, so I knew that that was going to leak. This, once the tone holes are all sealed up, is not going to leak. The other thing is, ABS has a lower density than PLA, which means it's lighter. In fact, it's a lot lighter. It's probably, I'd say it's probably about 2 pounds lighter than the PLA version, so that it's actually really super comfortable now. It feels very good under the hands. There's not that excessive weight from the extra long bell. In fact, I actually haven't sat down with it with the peg in place to figure out if it will sit well or off to the right side. And yes, it does. Who's Bart? So yeah, so on the ABS model or the PLA model, I had to sit with it in between my legs, like you would on a contrabassoon, because of the weight distribution. On the ABS version, I can very comfortably sit with it off to the right side, just like a regular bassoon, and that will alleviate some of the ergonomic issues that I was anticipating. So that is a huge, huge improvement there. So yeah, I've got this second body, and it's looking really good. It's a lot lighter. I will be using the PLA body to do some experiments with the keys. I will probably initially mount the keys to the PLA body, and then once I've got those satisfactory, they will be transferred over to the ABS body. Also with the ABS body, I plan on printing multiple upper wing joints. And you've seen the wing joint is split in 2, and you can see here that I've got it nice and corked. I'm going to cork the other 2 joints. At some point, I've got to actually get cork that's long enough, because I don't have any cork that's long enough to wrap around the whole joint. But yeah, I'll be printing with multiple upper wing joints, and there will be lots of experiments made on vent hole placement. And so, yeah, that is the update there. In fact, last night, as I was going to bed, I set to print another shepherd's crook, and the print failed spectacularly. In fact, I've never had a print actually fail in that particular way. And let me see where. It's right here. I had basically the seams come apart, so what we call layer adhesion. But I had been planning on taking one of these joints and dissecting it anyway. And the reason for that is because it is printed in a standing upright position. There's nothing holding the center part of the this bend here. So I was going to take apart one of these anyway, and I wanted to inspect the interior. Well, it just happens that this one here fell apart, and I can actually inspect the interior and see how smooth it actually is. And surprise of surprises, it is about as smooth as I could hope for. And I think that by basically what I did on this one here is I take a swab, soak it in an acetone, and then pull it through the joint, and that actually smooths it out because ABS plastic will melt in acetone. And if you do it very quickly, you'll smooth out the interior of the bore. Let's see. Yes, what's left to add in the design? The keywork. Yeah, and I've got sketchbooks filled with the keywork. The next step on the keywork is I'm going to be getting dimensions off of this on all of the pad cups, and I'm going to be ordering pad cups. I'd like to order pad cups perhaps in the next week. They'll be coming from Germany, from a company there that specializes in that. And so I'll have pad cups. And I haven't even calculated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 pad cups is what I need. So yeah, there's 21 holes on the instrument, be covered by 19 pad cups. 2 holes, of course, are just for the fingers. So yeah, there's that. So I've got a question here. Not to go off topic, any updates on getting the handle for the G bass trombone fixed? Yes. I visited my friend Dr. Carl Kleinstuber in Denton, who now has a new brass store there, Denton Big Brass. He's a Wessex distributor, and turns out that the Wessex bass sack butt is almost a perfect match for the handle. Yeah, looks like I got a bot. So we're going to boom, do that. Anyway, so yeah, it turns out the Wessex bass sack butt handle is would be a perfect match for, as well as the case for the Wessex bass sack butt is a perfect match for a case. I just have to widen the slot for the belt, which is not terribly difficult. I just got to cut out some foam. So yeah, and tried out a mouthpiece. I found one that really works. What we're going to be looking at is actually a copy of an original French tuba mouthpiece, French C tuba mouthpiece, and that fits right into the G bass trombone, and it sounded wonderful with my terrible brass chops. So the G bass trombone is sitting up here. You can probably see it just in the very top of the screen. It's that thing right there. But yeah, we need a system for making keywork that fits together like Legos. Oh no, we want keywork that is functional, really. You've got to solder it, and I am probably going to be doing a lot of study of soldering techniques over the next few months. Before I ever solder any keys together, I'm just going to have to sit down and get really good with a blowtorch. And that's just going to be how that is. So there's a learning curve so I'm going to have to start building keys. But that said, once I get that process down, I feel like I'll be able to build them fairly quickly. No, no, I really don't think I'll be able to fill them, make them very quickly. It's going to be a long, long process. What I will say is I will probably start the keys. Really, I'll probably start with the keys to the bass joint first, because it will be the simplest keys, and then go on to the bell because the bell's going to have to connect to the bass joint. From there, I will go to the wing joint to match that up, and the wing joint will then connect over to the boot joint, and the boot joint connects to the hip joint. What does Lauren say? I just thought of my failed attempt at making a mini bassoon when I was little. You know what? One of the things we are talking about is actually making a mini bassoon, a true professional tenoroon in G. So not one of the kiddie instruments, a real actual functional professional. I wonder how hard it would be to make an entire woodwind from Legos. Very. Well, I think you could do something like a recorder. If you do it with a square bore. So a square bore recorder. Exactly, Ratchet. Yeah. So, box of trumpet, box of, like the box of Clyde. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my update here. With it being so much lighter, it really, really does feel very comfortable now. In a way that it did not before. Why would I put the tenoroon in G and not F? Very, very easy question there. The bassoon itself, remember, is in F. We think of it in C, but it's fundamentally in F. By putting the tenoroon and the great bassoon in G, we're just putting it back in C. So we have instruments in C and F. Ostensibly, we call them in C and G, though. So the fundamental scale of this instrument will just be the C major scale. So if I go da 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 da, it's a C major scale. And the same thing on the tenoroon. It seems random, but is that a serpent behind you? Yeah, that's a serpent behind me. G bass trombone up there. There's an ophicleide over there. Yeah, I've got some weird stuff behind me. I mean, heck, there's even a couple crumb horns behind me, too. These are Richard Bobo specials. I mean, God, the stuff behind me. This right here is the rarest thing. This is a joint of the sub contrabassoon that Richard has. You can see the difference between the sub contrabassoon and the great bassoon. It's a little bit different. It doesn't have a slide lock or a locking slide mechanism on it. Correct. Tell you what, let me get the G bass trombone down off the shelf, and it seems there's lots of questions on it. Forgive me for having to show you my less attractive side. So yeah, this is the G bass trombone here. I have to maneuver around here because of a bassoon and two great bassoons right next to me, and it's a little harder to move back here in this little corner. But yeah, so here's the G bass. There is like I said, no slide mechanism or slide lock. There's no slide handle on it. And in general, it'll need a little bit of slide work on it. The slide appears to have been lacquered at some point. Anybody up for Symphony Fantastique? Sure. I wouldn't use this for Symphony Fantastique. There's no bass trombone part in it. One of these days I'm going to do a multi-track version of Symphony Fantastique where I'm playing four bassoons, Serpent, and the Ophicleide. That would be just a terrible, terrible thing to listen to. And, I actually have performed Fantastique before. Granted, we did it with, F tubas and not an Ophicleide or a Serpent, but performed it. I played fourth bassoon on it. What do you think about the potential for virtual wind instruments as a viable option for composers even after the pandemic? I think it's probably going to continue to be a thing for composers like me who really do some crazy experimental stuff with their ensembles. I think it's probably going to be a viable thing. In fact, because I think it's a viable thing, I have started the long process of the engraving of Symphony Number 3 to maybe do a virtual performance next year. And I say that not having completed the virtual performance of Symphony 2 yet, but Symphony 2 is actually getting closer and closer day by day to being fully complete. All the woodwinds are complete. I think 80% of the brass is complete, and we're really starting in on the percussion. I've got organ in, and just waiting on piano, harp, celeste, and the rest of the percussion, and the double basses. In fact, that's actually probably another story there. In the process of recording, I have made some changes to Symphony 2. I added a double bass part, which did not originally exist. And I thought, well, it's the only standard wind instrument, wind band instrument that was not in the ensemble, so I went ahead and added parts for it, and I think they work quite well, and I've got somebody who's going to play that for me. And I added one note to the organ part, and I know that Jack was in here. Jack was in my Discord server just a little bit ago, and he recorded the organ part for me. And luckily, he was messaged me during the recording so I could add the one note in. Okay, there's flute choirs and clarinet choirs that have every voice available, surprisingly lacking for bassoon and oboe. Okay, there is a reason for this, and it has to do with an educational and a pedagogical aspect. Flute choirs and clarinet choirs, they're all taught by the same teacher. They're all in the same studio in a college setting. And by and large, that's where we start to see these kind of ensembles. So because they're all in the same studio, they all want to get together and have classes. They will get these big ensembles together. Bassoons and oboes don't have studio together. They are separate. So you've got the soprano and alto voices over here. You've got the tenor and bass voices over here, and ne'er shall the twain mix. And so that's part of the reason there. In fact, I talked a year ago when I was last up at UNT, talked to the oboe professor there, and yes, they do absolutely nothing in the oboe studio with the bassoon studio. They're separate. They don't mingle. And so that's a lot of the reason there. Lauren asks, do you write your music out by hand and then engrave the parts into software? I do a little bit of writing by hand, but by and large, I end up composing a lot of the stuff directly into Finale. And that's just kind of how I'm personally comfortable with it. And I grew up using Finale, basically. I started using Finale in '98. So I've spent a lot of time with the software. over 20 years. So I am quicker with finale than I am by hand. That said, if I want sketches, early drafts are where I spend most of my time on pencil and paper. Um, yeah, no, the actual engraving process in finale for me takes a long time. I I was talking about this earlier in Discord. Uh, Engraving is my absolute least favorite part of the composing process. I do not have that minute level of attention to detail that you need to be an engraver. Um, and Ratchet has looked at a lot of the stuff, and he'll kind of proofread some of my engraving from time to time. And he's got a much better eye than I do on the engraving process. I It's just not something that I like doing. I mean, I'll do it, but it's so long. Ratchet, it is a shame in some ways that they don't mix. Just part of it though is it is pedagogical because the pedagogy of oboe does not translate to the bassoon and vice versa. So it's difficult for them to mix together. Um, there are few instances um, where you will see oboes and bassoons together, and it's going to be mainly you'll see pieces like Music for the Royal Fireworks or Granger's Hillsong Number One. Let's see. Not a lot of lyrics for oboe or reed choir anyway. No, there isn't. Oboes don't generally do well in mass settings. Um, is the G bass trombone marked low pitch or high pitch? It is low pitch, thankfully. I would not have gotten it if it were marked as high pitch. Um, the it Ratchet. It's not because the instruments are expensive at all. It's like I was saying, the pedagogical thing. It really is. Um, when I was in college, the bassoons never talked to the oboes. In fact, the professors weren't even there on the same day. In a big university, yeah, you'll see that. Um, yeah, and by and large, in a lot of universities, they share the same office space, which is why they are never going to be there at the same time because they can't both teach lessons in the same office. Um, as as universities grow and move away from adjunct toward more full-time professors, that changes a little bit. But by and large, oboe and bassoon professors are not there on the same days, which means that you're not going to get the two studios mixing. It sounds like the double reeds are rivals. In some ways, they are. Um, just remember, oboists keep their reeds much sharper than bassoon reed. Keep their reed knives much sharper than bassoon reed knives. In fact, God, my reed knife is dull and has chips in it. So yeah. Let's see what else. Got. Yeah, go ahead and hit me with any questions you've got. You're new to the channel. I think Lauren here is new. I don't think she's been in any of the chats before. You can ask about any of the weird instruments I've got behind me or that I can go get from another room because I've got a few of those. Yeah, let's see. What else do we have tonight? So let's go back to the Greatbassoon. And, well, that's one of the problems right there with the Greatbassoon being as tall as it is. I hit the ceiling. Lovely. I need taller ceilings. So my only brass Do you plan on writing a type of solo concert piece for the Great Bassoon? I haven't thought about it. Really, I might one of these days. I don't really want to write too much until I can hear it a little more than I have. I want to know what it'll do first. I started a band piece that I have an optional Great Bassoon part in it. Is that my only brass instrument? Sorry, the Ophicleide and the Serpent. So I've got Ophicleide and the Serpent. I've got B flat tenor trombone, a G bass trombone, and I have a wall hanger cornet and a wall hanger trumpet. So yeah, there's that. What brand is my bass recorder? I have two bass recorders. Actually, I've got the Yamaha that you see behind me, and then back in the corner, there is an old German fingering system bass that really sucks. So I may just sell it at some point. But I love the Yamaha behind me, and that was when I got my great bass clarinet, the contralto clarinet. It was just thrown in the box for free because friends are awesome. So yeah. The next thing on the Great Bassoon that I'm going to do, and this is going to require printing some new pieces, is I have got to make some interior bore sanders. And what that will entail is I will take a conical piece that is designed to match the interior cone of each joint. So it'll be the exact shape of the interior, and I'm going to coat that with sandpaper and just basically turn it and slowly sand down the inside. And I'm going to need to make one for the bell, one for the bass joint, two for the boot joint, and then one for the lower wing and one for the upper wing, at least the half of the upper wing. So that's going to probably be my next project, and I will probably design those myself. Just to get a little bit better at CAD modeling. I'm not great at the CAD modeling. Jared's kind of taken over most of that stuff. All right, see you later, Ratchet. Hopefully you're not going to be stranded too much longer. Question, how is the intonation for the Chinese E-flat clarinet? It's not too bad. Get a good mouthpiece on it and it's significantly better. I've really never used it. I used it once, and it's in the other room right now. The clarinet you see behind me is a C clarinet, and that's got a new Jared De Leon special barrel on it. Oh, speaking of Jared De Leon special barrels, let me go get something out of the other room, and I am going to brag on my friend a little bit. So hang tight, I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so what I have here is my alto clarinet, tenor clarinet as I like to call it, and I have a new barrel on it, a new neck, and I went out to my mailbox one day, and there's a package there from Jared. It's like, Jared didn't say he was sending me anything. I didn't order anything from him, and in it is a new neck for my alto clarinet. It is absolutely beautiful. Just a pure, nice curve here. And I played it a little bit. Um, and it absolutely makes the instrument sing in a way that it never has before. That's just the upper register. It goes clear up to high C, no problem at all. Um, and it is an absolute wonderful addition to my alto clarinet. If you play alto clarinet of any kind, get in touch with Jared and have him make you a new neck. It's absolutely going to change how your alto clarinet plays for the better. Um, take it off here real quick and I can show you. Um, so the main body is 3D printed, and then the tenon here is carbon fiber tube, and absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. And I don't think I've told Jared enough how wonderful it is. So yeah, there's that. Jared, of course, got my one of my G clarinet, and if you've paid attention to his channel at all, you see the new G basset horn he's built, and that was the G clarinet that sat behind me in all my old videos. How does it differ from the stock neck? It's much freer blowing. I can play a lot louder on it. The stock neck does have a tuning slide in it, but I don't need it. It sits fairly well in tune with itself, and it feels very, very comfortable to play on. But yeah, no, I absolutely love this neck. I highly recommend it for anybody who's got an alto clarinet. Make sure you upgrade your neck on it. And no one's ever made upgrade necks for alto clarinet before until Jared started making them. So it's night and day difference. It really is. This is not going to be the laughing stock of the clarinet family anymore, or the wind band. The dimensional differences are a trade secret. It's probably not dimensional differences so much as it's going to be just a thicker bore, and that'll make some difference there. It's basically wood versus metal, so you'll have that difference there. Yeah. So there's that. God, I've got so many instruments around me. I've got to do something. I'm becoming a hoarder. Good Lord. Maybe I should do an instrument giveaway. Maybe not. Yeah. So there's that. I'm surprised Jared's not in the chat room at the moment, but Different time zone. Let's see. What else? What other questions do we have? I do have another video that I'm going to be working on soon. Maybe film bits and pieces of it over the next few days. And it's going to be entitled 10 Wind Instruments That Don't Exist That Should, or something along those lines. And I want to look at wind instruments that don't exist or have existed in the past, but are no longer. Yeah. I like the sound of an instrument giveaway. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen, though. Speaking of brass instruments, they are currently the only extant members of wind instruments which technically have a sound resonance that is not divisible by the open hole. I'm not exactly sure what you mean there. I mean, woodwind instruments are designed with finger holes in it, though you can have woodwind instruments without finger holes if you take a look at something like the slide saxophone. What would you consider your imposing style to be? Nerd chic. Yeah. I'm not really that imposing. I mean, I'm 6'2". That's a little bit imposing. My girlfriend tells me I'm not imposing at all, though. Do you mean composing, perhaps? If you mean my composing style, I mean, I'd have to say contemporary, just because, but I think that applies though to any composer living today, because you're not going to be writing classical music or romantic music because you're no longer in that time period. You are by definition writing contemporary music or modern music or 21st century music, however we want to define it. I absolutely have influences from the Romantic era. I do not deny that, but I'm not going to be limited to any one time period that I'm borrowing from. Symphony 2 is a great example of that. It's got a lot of modern and contemporary things. I'm borrowing all over the place, but at the end there's this wonderful trombone chorale, and it is directly influenced by Renaissance choral music. So, I mean, I pull from there. I pull from church music. I pull from... If I were to... So, I mean, if I just go through and list all the influences in Symphony 2, I think we'd be here another hour. Because, you know, the Section 2, the first official dream, that's basically based on Christmas music. The Dream of Nature is based on bird songs and sounds, literal recreations of wind and rain. And the Dream of Flight, I take a lot of inspiration from some of John Williams' stuff. I know there's some Bach's influence in the next section. The Dream of Love is very heavily taken from Wagner and Schoenberg. The Dream of War has influences from Holst, Revueltas, Havergal Brian, Hector Berlioz. So, I mean, like I said, I could probably talk all day on the influences of Symphony 2. at some point, I would love to sit down and kind of make a big long video, all just talking all about Symphony 2, and I probably would do that after the premiere. Um, Hoping that comes sooner than later, of course. All right, let's see. What else do we have? So yes, if you play alto clarinet, make sure you go and get a new neck from Jared. I know he makes them for LeBlanc, Noblet, Selmer, Bundy. I'm not sure if he's done a buffet yet. You'll have to ask him on that. I know he's done a Colert. But yeah. All right. Let's see. Should we talk more about Greatbassoon or what? Yeah, let's talk Greatbassoon. Let's talk key work on it. So let me grab my bassoon here really quickly. My I am a I love advanced mechanism on bassoon or on really any woodwind instrument. And so in the design process for the key work on the Greatbassoon, I am absolutely taking a lot of the advanced design mechanisms that are on my bassoon and on other bassoons. I've talked a lot with Christian Omaronis on the design of his bassoon and looked at some of the mechanisms he has there. And so the final version of the Greatbassoon is, in my opinion, is going to play easier than a regular bassoon, just because it's going to have a lot more mechanisms on it. Let's see. Is there a mechanism on the bassoon you admit on the Greatbassoon? Yeah, absolutely, and I am. I'm admitting the whisper key. There will not be a whisper key on the Greatbassoon. You don't need it. Instead, it's going to have 3, possibly 4 octave vents. The fourth one, when I was doing the play test a few weeks ago, I noticed that the A-flat harmonic did not want to vent properly with a half hole. So it is entirely possible that A-flat will need a vent. As much as I don't want to put another vent on, I may have to. KY Piper, I missed your question. Do I have a bass sax? No. It is the only standard sax I don't have. You just don't run across cheap bass saxes, unfortunately. I would love to have a bass sax. If I were to, suddenly get $5,000, I would absolutely, the first thing I do is probably invest it in a bass sax. But I don't have one. And I don't really have place to put one either at the moment. I need a bigger house. Or just to clean this one. Oh my. But yeah, so back to omitting the whisper key. Yeah, it was always the plan. That the Greatbassoon will omit the whisper key, and that it can be seen here actually in the design. It's why there is the shepherd's crook here. If I were to include a whisper key, there would not be a shepherd's crook. If I would have a longer vocal. Instead, this is taking the place of the part of what would be the vocal, and that's because I'm going to have a vent hole probably about right here, and I would not be able to have that on the vocal itself. It's got to be on the body of the instrument. The fancy loop here is because I didn't want to have a really tight bend. And I like the aesthetic of the loop, personally. I really do. I think it's kind of classy. It gives it an absolute distinctive look, and you see this, you'll automatically know it's a Newton Greatbassoon. Do I have a bass tuba? No, I do not have a bass tuba. I have no tuba. No tuba. I don't really plan on getting a bass tuba. I mean, again, if somebody gave me one, I would happily take it. I mean, I wasn't planning on getting an Clyde, and somebody gave me one, so I happily took it. So Titus, if you would like to give me a bass tuba, I would happily take it. One other thing that I will probably get lots of questions on is why have the extra tall bell and not have the bell bent over? Well, one, it's a low A bell, so yeah, it's going to be a little taller. I mean, I could, I guess, theoretically bend over, and it would bend over to about here. But if I actually have the bell where it's right here, it's going to start getting in the way of vision. It'll change a little bit of balance on it. Plus, I really prefer bassoons with bell pointed upwards. And it just points the sound out into the audience instead of down into the floor. I theoretically could make a low B flat bell. And the low B flat bell would come to about right here. Okay. Will I use cork or thread on the joints? Good question. Currently, the joint that is corked is this one here. This is the lower wing joint, and I do have it corked. Simply because I had cork laying around. On the other one, it is string. And I'm probably going to do cork on everything. Just because my string wrapping tends to disintegrate a little bit as I put it on. So I just don't want to mess with it. And cork is just a little easier to apply. And I finally think I've got my corking method down fairly well. I've thought about O-rings. We'd have to actually go back to the modeling stage on it. I just thought of this question. Is it possible for clarinet and saxophone players to double tongue? Absolutely, yeah. A lot of professional players are going to double tongue. It's just something you've got to train the muscles how to do. I mean, I can double tongue a little bit on bassoon. I am not by any means adept at it, but I can do it in a pinch. And that actually did take me years of training to get to that point. But I can do it. And clarinet and saxophone can do it as well. It just takes a while. Flute and brass are by far much easier, much more adroit at doing double tonguing. And it's simply because the fact that there's no reed in the mouth. So you need, you don't want something in the mouth. Yeah, I can go all day long. Well, no, I can't because I'm not that good at it. But the moment you put something in the mouth, it becomes much, much more difficult. Does it have a body lock? Not yet. It will. I'm going to have to get a body lock. As you can see, it's really wobbly. And part of that is the bass joint has no cork on it yet. And I've just got to get longer sheet cork to put on there. But yes, it will have a bass joint, a body joint. And I've got to figure out exactly where I'm going to put it. And it'll probably be one of the last things I put on. Simply because I'm going to want to have all the key work in place to know exactly where it will fit. I have some doubts about fitting all of the necessary key work on the wing joint. I'm wondering if the wing joint will have to be redesigned a little bit to make it actually thicker, because it's a little bit on the thin side, and putting the keys on it will become a little more difficult. We'll see. I don't know fully on that. So it's possible that Jared and I might redesign the wing to be thicker. And in fact, I'll take off the wing joint and show you. There is one place where it is thicker, and I've got a plateau here for the first finger, and I may extend that plateau. So we'll see. These write parts for bands with B-flat bass in G-clef and other different instruments that are no longer done. Why do they change to this? Okay, so in Europe, that is still the case in many band traditions, that almost all the instruments are written in treble clef. British brass band is a great example of this. Every instrument in the British brass band, except the bass trombone, is written in treble clef. This includes all your tubas, your euphonium, your B-flat tuba, your E-flat tuba. So it was a pedagogical reason, so that you could play any set of fingerings and just switch the instrument, and you knew all the fingerings. It was great. You didn't have to learn a new clef. Unless you went to bass trombone. And the reason bass trombone was different is, well, this VC right here. It was the only instrument in the band not in E-flat or B-flat. It was in G. And it didn't make sense to put this in treble clef, because it wasn't going to transpose the same. The person playing bass trombone only ever played bass trombone. They never played tenor trombone. They never played euphonium. They never played tuba. It was just bass trombone. So that's still done to this day in British brass bands. In other band traditions, you will still see tuba parts occasionally written in treble clef. You'll sometimes see tuba parts written in a transposing bass clef too, which is a little bit odd. And you will see these listed as world parts. So if you see a set of world parts, you will see parts for E-flat tuba and E-flat horn that we don't use here in the United States. Half tube trumpets, harmonics, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so trumpets don't use the harmonic one, the fundamental. And many brass instruments are like this. Cornets, horns, a lot of the smaller brass instruments, the fundamental is simply not available. And that's just due to physics. In older trumpets, the second harmonic often wasn't available. Clarinet trumpet playing, you may not have even had the third harmonic. The instruments were just upper harmonics only. So if you look at Baroque trumpet parts, you may not see the second or third harmonics being played. Particularly in first trumpet parts. Second and third trumpet parts, yeah, you'd see it, but not in first. So I hope that answers your question, KY Piper. Didgeridoo, yeah, didgeridoo will have the odd harmonics. Didgeridoo's just weird though, and they're not, I mean, they can have some fundamental pitch, but where is my didgeridoo? I've got a didgeridoo in this room somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Yes, I've seen B flat tuba parts written in bass clef transposing. Yeah, they'll sound a ninth down. The classic example of this is if you go find the original score to Schmidt's Dionysiacs, the tuba part is written a ninth higher than it sounds. I've also, it's very traditional French way of writing it. You'll still see it occasionally. And part of that is the fact that the standard French tuba was the little C tuba. And everything else was a transposing instrument off of that. So if you started on the French C tuba and you went to the giant B flat tuba, you would use the same fingerings and you just transpose from there. It was pretty simple. Let's see. What else? Oh, something else I'm working on. I am finally starting to get a deep dive into the second edition of Volume 1 of Band Orchestration. Maybe I'll have that done by the end of the year. Probably not. It'll probably be another 150 pages of text added in. But otherwise, guys, I'll take a few more questions. I'll hang around for about another 5 minutes. I've been on right at an hour. But yeah, ask away. Got about 5 minutes. Just checking. I've been getting some messages here. Heard of putting a trumpet player on E flat tuba so they didn't have to learn new fingerings or C clef. No. No. In the United States, E flat tuba is never seen outside of professionals. I've never seen anybody other than a professional use an E flat tuba. So at that point, they know what they're doing. E flat tuba, on the other hand, in England, that's their standard. But there's still, they need to learn bass clef. What do I have in mind for an instrument giveaway? Oh, I don't know. That was me just throwing ideas out there. I wouldn't be giving, no, I'm not giving away an instrument. Sorry. I don't have one that I can give away. Sorry. And if I did, it would be something like a wall hanger, and it's not worth sending it out, to be perfectly honest. They're just decoration. Let's see. Do we have anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and end it for tonight. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me. Maybe we'll do another one of these next week. I always like them. They're kind of fun. Yeah. So until next time, that's been fun. Maybe next time I talk to you, I'll have some more updates on the Greatbassoon. So, yeah. Talk to you later.